Welcome back to Grade 7 Math. This is lesson number 5.3, Fractions, Decimals, and Percents. So far, we have learned how to change a fraction to a decimal and a decimal to a percent. Today's lesson will focus on the reverse, changing a percent to a decimal and a percent to a fraction. To change a percent to a decimal, slide the decimal 2 places to the left. Here is an example. I have 25%, and the decimal starts right after the 5. So if I move it 2 places to the left, I end up with 0.25. Let's look at the second example. I've got 77.8%, and the decimal actually starts after the second 7. So I move it 2 places, and that gives me 0.778. Let's try changing these percents into decimals. And I'll choose a couple to do, and then you can pause the video so that you can try some at home, and then we'll take it up next day. And we'll start off with 13%. So my decimal starts right after the 3, and if I move it 2 spaces to the left, that will give me 0.13. Let's take a look at 8%. Okay, the decimal starts right after the 8. If I move it 2 spots to the left, I'm actually going to have an empty space, which I'm going to fill up with a 0, meaning that 8% equals 0.08. Let's do one more. Let's take 23.77%. If I move the decimal over 2 spaces to the left, I'm going to get 0.2377. And what you should notice from these examples, folks, is that you're not always going to get decimals that have exactly 2 digits after the decimal, and you're not always going to get a decimal that starts off with a digit that's 1 or higher. Okay, here we got a decimal that had a 0 right after the decimal point. And in this example here, we actually had 4 digits after the decimal, and that's okay. So again, pause the video and give these remaining 5 problems a try on your own. Moving forward, to change a percent into a fraction, make the percent the numerator and write 100 as the denominator. So for example, 31% equals simply 31 over 100. So let's look at some examples here. I'll try 2 or 3 of them, and you'll try the rest out at home before we go over the remaining problems at school the next day. So let's look at this first one, 47%. Well, I can just turn my percent into the numerator, and that will be 47 over 100. I'm also going to try 25%, and again, just using my percent as my numerator gives me 25 over 100. But am I done? Oh no. I notice that I can divide both the top and the bottom by 25. So I can reduce this fraction all the way down to 1 over 4. Okay, let's look at the one directly underneath 9%. Again, quite simply, I'm going to make 9 my numerator. I'm going to make 100 my denominator. And folks, I want to point out a common mistake. A lot of people tend to look at smaller percents that are less than 10, and they'll say, well, this is 9, so it's only 9 out of 10. But you have to remember, percent is always out of 100. Okay, so pause the video, try these remaining 5 problems, and then we'll take them up tomorrow. Okay, some of the problems we're going to deal with involve looking at diagrams and real life situations. So here's a very simple circle graph that shows the division of minutes in a typical 60-minute television show. So commercials represent 23%, promotions, special commercials represent 9%, and then the main program itself is 68%. So what we need to do, using this above circle graph, we need to write each percent as a decimal and as a fraction. So I'll do the first one. Okay, C for commercials. So if that's 23%, well, I can just write 23 over 100, or as a decimal, I can write 0 decimal 2 3. And here's a question for you to think about tonight, and then we're going to talk about how to solve a problem like this tomorrow. How many minutes are spent for commercials and promotions? Okay, I'll just tell you it has something to do with the percent and the number of minutes in the TV show. So think about that, and we'll complete this problem in tomorrow's class. So after we take up all of these sample problems that I've left for you to try at home, in tomorrow's class I'll give you some time to work on a selection of questions that test your ability to convert percents to fractions and to decimals. And this concludes today's video.